So welcome back everyone. This is Shrimp in the House Recall Part 7. And I think as I said in the first video from this part, I'm kind of doing this out of order. So this, so I as of recording this, I don't know where this will fall specifically, but this is the 5th page I'm working on. Oh my god. Um, so I'm, if Windows will ever cooperate. So it's sort of like right here I'm working on kind of the moment where David realizes what everyone else knows, even if the reader doesn't know they know it yet. So, he woke up and, oh my god, this is going slow. He sort of woke up not any smaller. And it stopped. So the initial exuberance over that is going to quickly fade away with his new fear. Let's see. No, I think the smile has to go completely off. Um, so it's one thing I've been kind of struggling with is the placement of what just happened. Oh my god. Is the placement of when to reveal sort of all the moments that show that Liz knew all along. Sort of there was a moment in the last part that I wanted to that I thought would make a good opportunity. I'm sort of thinking if it's a big reveal moment, it should come here at the end somewhere. So now I'm thinking this would be another good spot. But I'm pretty sure this is going, wherever this ends up falling in the part, it'll be early in the part, like in the first half or so. So I've been like wondering if it's something that shouldn't come closer to the end. Let's see, what do we have to see here? Oh, not sure. Okay, yeah, I can condense that down. So it's kind of like a do or die sort of moment on that, because if I have the reveal coming, if I sort of have that montage reveal here, or I should say on the next page, I've got to set the text up here. I'm at the point where I absolutely have to kind of set it up. The other possibility is, because I will be working on those montage pages next anyway. But one possibility is that I have to stage this page so that if I change my mind later, so that I can change my mind later and put the reveal later in this part at the end of the story instead of at the early in this part, that I can rework um, that I can come in here and just easily rework the dialogue, and it'll still work with the pictures I set up. I have done that once or twice before. Had to like completely rework a conversation, but keep it, but still have to keep it working with the pictures rather than have to reshoot a whole page. And it's possible if I kick, I'm not really sure. I'm thinking if I can really kick my butt into gear and get this finished, could I could have this sort of rushed out by the end, by on the 31st. I'm not going to promise that. I was, I'm not sure, because I was thinking, it's. I think I've showcased it in previous works. The what goes on after I finish the last page is that I'll usually take one day to create all the covers for each of the parts plus the main cover. And even though it's one image, they can often take as long, if not longer, to create than an ordinary page, which has, anywhere from 3 to 6 images. And that's because each page, each cover picture is basically restaged from scratch. Um, Coupled with the idea that there's a lot more thought that goes into an image, a cover image, than it does for, say, here within the page. So it's when I create, when I put this, so like as you see in every video, when I do these images to park into a box, like I don't have to think about specifically where within the rendered image David has to be. I can it's like just for this page, having David here at this point in the image is fine. If he happens to be over here, that'll be fine too. If I put him over at this edge, that'll be fine because I end up snipping these down to, I'll move them and cut them to where they need to be. Whereas the image for the covers, I'll render them just a little bit bigger than the page itself. So that, like, I can see on the screen when I've got the aspect frame. When I put the aspect frame in, I can visualize it on the screen here, what it's going to look like on the page before I render it. But then it takes a lot of movement to make sure it fits, that like what I want to see fits under the title. I'll have to match it to make sure that the title kind of contrasts with the image enough, that sort of thing. And it's usually the main cover too is where I'm a lot pickier than I am anywhere else. So the main image sometimes goes through a lot of iterations. It's I have before staged it and just never been able to get it to work right, so I have to stage a completely new image and try something else. Layered image size. So and then in like when I'm working on a longer project like this one, like Burn Pit, like I'm trying to think, Lil Bro, even like something 6 parts like Friends Forever. It's that's like 7 to 9 pages basically that I'm working on. Whereas in the shorter projects, like a 3 to 4 part, that's only 4 to 5 pages I come up with. And sometimes I can move to the next stage after creating those. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, let me stage this picture before I go on to the next thought, or the next thought on that line. But it's sort of like these talking head scenes from the creator perspective. These talking head scenes are great because you can just whip them off quickly, but at the same time they're not visually interesting. So sometimes you've got to quote unquote challenge yourself. So what we're going to do is pop him in her hand. Oh, we're way off. Okay. that's good. Now let's bring up the thumb to make it look like she's supporting him. Whoops, not that one. She doesn't want him to fall out the hand, but she doesn't want to squeeze him tight and hurt him. So, and now we'll just kind of move the legs to match the hand. You know what? Maybe I can. No, I'm going to have to do this from here. But I guess I can go back to that thought for a minute. So after I do the covers, then I'll go ahead and assemble the ebook in Kindle Comic Create. And I've done a couple of videos to show how that's done. If you want to see how to, and I've done those more as with an instructional, not obstruction, with an instructional mindset, so that if you're wondering how to take, if you're doing this, if like you're deciding to do something like this yourself, and you're wondering how to take it from those static images and turn it into an ebook for Amazon. I've done a couple of videos showing how easy it is. It just takes a little bit of time, but it's not that difficult. And it's, again, the length of the project depends on how long that part takes. So it's, for me, that can usually take a couple of hours. Like I said, depending on how long the book is. Hmm. No, I don't want to collapse all. I'll just collapse from selected. Because I want to find her hand. Okay. I'm just going to collapse to simplify things here, and then hopefully. Ugh. Let's see. I'm not sure why it's been giving me a pain in the butt doing this in this story. I've been having issues trying to put him in people's hands all throughout this story. Um, okay, let's Control C the number itself. See, for some reason, it's messing with the scale slider when I pop it in our hand. Because basically the idea is I can place him cleanly in her hand and then parent him to the hand so that I can move her hand and arm. however I want, and he'll stay in position. It's a lot. It's a lot easier to work with than oftentimes than trying to position her first. And trying to fit him, especially if it means having to deal with the X and Z axis on rotating him around instead of just the Y. Speaking of, so we're gonna kind of make it look like there's some movement, some. So doing it now, let's take hidden off for a moment. So then once I get the ebook ready, um, then I'll go through it looking for any last minute problems coupled with sort of the editing. Uh, I think so it's kind of the process to keep everything, to keep the words from kind of blurring together in my mind after multiple reads. Uh, I'll usually read through the thing in its entirety before I assemble the ebook. I'll give it a once. I'll read through it once before assembling the ebook. Look for any kind of mistakes that might have slipped through. I'm sure you're sitting at home. You sit at home watching these. You'll probably see all kinds of errors that I don't pick up. You'd be like, "Oh my God, you spelled that word wrong! I can't believe you don't see that." it's it's when I'm working here, I get so many things that I don't see everything. So I'll worry about fixing those. It's those kind of spelling errors. Well, I'll look for them more after when that's all I have to focus on. So I'll do one round of editing before assembling the ebook, and then I'll do 2 rounds afterwards. For a couple of reasons. So it's that the second round, the first one after putting together the ebook, while I'm looking for mistakes that slipped through the first round, that second round is also about is also about making sure that the formatting is correct. Because I always have tons of minor issues that have to be adjusted. I have to go back into Kindle Comic Create and make adjustments. Nothing major. Like it's not like the book itself is broken at that point and has to be fixed. It's usually just um, sort of those zoomable panels are usually not set, or sometimes not set right, and they have to go back. I have to go back in and readjust them because I kind of missed them when putting the book together. Sometimes I'll find panels out of order, and I have to go back. Um, I'm going to save that, but something looks funny. Let me grab him and come back to perspective view. Oh, okay. For some reason, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to redo that one. Yeah, see, your thumb is in his back. I think too, it's what's bothering me is in this shot. Oh shoot, and her hand is it doesn't look like he has a hand. It's just, uh, it's just the angle of this arm. Okay, I think that's gonna be better. Render that. I'll come in and delete this one. So what the idea is, so the second round of editing catches whatever mistakes, inconsistencies, errors slipped through the first time, plus kind of fixes any sort of technical issues with the book itself. And then once I've sort of redone the ebook, I'll go through it the third time. Will be sort of that last like verification that everything worked out as far as the technical stuff. It'll be another round to eyeball spelling, grammar, whatever mistakes that kind of slipped through the second round. But primarily, the third round, that's usually where um, I'll take text that has been bothering me the whole time. It's not technically wrong. It's just sort of the wording, the phrasing bothers me. And like in the first and the second round, I'll justify leaving it in. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't, it's just in my head, it doesn't feel right. Something about it doesn't feel right. But instead of changing it, like I said, I'll justify it. And that third round, it's always that third round where, like, I just won't let myself justify it anymore. And, like, I'll reword what somebody says so that it doesn't bother me anymore. And that usually happens in every book. There's always at least one line, one speech, one whatever that just that just glares out at me when I'm reading through it. And I think in the last couple of books I've been better about that. I'll get through that I'll get to that second round. Those kinds of lines will glare out at me, and I usually force myself to change it then and there instead of instead of just waiting. But it still happens. So this is better. Layer, scale layer, 4. I think this one might be sitting too low on the page, but if I go and cut it now, it's not going to matter. Oh, actually, it's not. Okay. So then after this, I should have. What am I doing? I get kind of stuck in a brain fog there. I should have. So even, let me think. Okay. You know what? I get really stuck in a brain fog here. Let's open this one again and start over. Okay, I want her there. And a little bit more. I think she ended up back where I started. Okay, so this will be easy to fix. Okay, so we're going to go layer to image size. I don't need to cut anything yet. Invert, shrink, because I'll use the border from the image underneath. Cut, and then merge it down. Now I might move this up a little bit. Okay. So yeah, I think what I was going to say when I ended up in that brain fog moment there for a moment. Oh my god. Was if even if this doesn't go out on the 31st, it should be done and up at the very beginning of April, hopefully in the first couple of days, which in the back of my head it'll be about time. And think I think I really want to get Sister-in-Law done by the end of the month, by the end of April. Let's raise the arm so it looks like there's movement here. Move him. And I don't know. I have to admit, I think, like, in the back of my head, I've been away. I put Sister-in-Law on the back burner so much that for so long that I really am thinking of wrapping it up early, which shouldn't affect the story any. All it'll all it'll mean is I just won't get to some of this, to sort of some of the stuff that I was hoping to do with it. But I don't know if it comes if it ends up moving a little faster than it was before. You know what? I'm gonna move her in a little bit. If it ends up moving a little faster, you know, maybe I'll change my mind. And maybe I'll change my mind once I get back into it and am not like stuck on this one so much. But it would be nice to have that one out by the end of April. Let's see. So, like I said, the one I won't give any details on what I'm expecting the next project to be. For one, I kind of want it to be. I want it to be sort of a surprise, but at the same time, I don't know if it'll end up. I don't know at this point if it'll be if everything will come together for it to be the next project, or if I'll end up doing another one before it. But I'm thinking, like, let's see. Let's see. Let me get this in before I kind of lose myself. I don't know that. Well, that and what if that's what the recall is? What if it's okay? This is what I want to stress. That's what if that's what the recall is all about. So we'll italicize that. Okay, and let's see what can we do with this. I guess we'll leave it at that. And what I want is this one. But it's like beyond the mystery project, the next non-mystery project. I think I've got a couple of candidates. Cut. So I have to say, in my mind, I think in the previous part of the reason I was recording so much was because I kind of wanted to voice some of the brainstorming ideas I had for a potential project that hasn't really come together in my head yet. I think about the teenager who is sort of placed in sort of a sports camp in exchange for a treatment that's going to make him bigger in a future where sort of genetic engineering is giving people new advantages, but his family's too poor for it. I think it's like there's a number of ideas that have been popping in my head on that one. Like I think like I kind of mentioned, I like this idea that like initially the other kids who have been there, who have or who are about somewhat halfway through their treatments and are already, even though they're not at the full size yet, they're already a lot bigger than he is, and they kind of come across as bullies, and it sort of like makes his initial experience miserable until he realizes that they're just having fun with him, and ultimately like, and when it comes down to the actual sports training, they take on more of a mentor role rather than a bully role to him. Is sort of like that. It's sort of like he realizes that at that point where he kind of starts to realize that the whole thing isn't as bad as he thinks. I'm toying with the idea of, and not the idea, but I'm sort of toying with the girlfriend angle. And I'm coming at it from a number of different. So I'm thinking. So it's my initial thought, and the one I'd like to go with is the idea that he meets this girl, falls in love with her, and eventually they get married and go off and live happily ever after. The idea that it's kind of a love story. But there's sort of another angle I'm looking at. In order to create some drama in the story, I was sort of thinking maybe he finds out this girl is already supposedly dating one of his friends. You sort of turn that into a love triangle. The girl just kind of ruins their friendship, comes between them. I don't want to say the possibility that the story could end where like they realize as so it's like I'm looking at a number of different angles of this. That like it's the possibility that like after the fighting and arguing over her, they kind of realize that she's just somebody that that like whoever wins, she's just going to end up cheating on them later on, so she's not worth it kind of angle. In the end, in the end, they both dump her and go back to being friends. There's another possibility that since they're in kind of a sports, since they're like working to be in a sports, not working, but since they're training to be in a sports league of sorts, she could end up being, there's one angle that she's a plant by a competing camp designed to ruin a winning team. That that these kids have become, these kids have become sort of like dominant players, for lack of a better word, in the league. So one of the competing training camps kind of uses this girl to intentionally create the drama in order to sort of distract them, throw them off, break up the team, that sort of thing. Let's see. Away. What do we say here? That's, maybe this ends up being a placeholder for something better later, but I'll have her say this. Um, Another thing I'm thinking about, so that the story, so I think another angle to take it, so that all the drama isn't just centered around the one main character. Is the possibility that this love triangle plays out between his two teammates instead of him and one of the teammates. So it's the other kid's friendship that is being broken apart, and you come at it and you sort of open up a couple of different angles from that, so that it's the main character is the one kind of playing the middleman, the peacemaker. He's the one trying to figure out how to put this back together. And at the same time, maybe there's like a little bit of guilt because he finds the girl he's with, he doesn't have that trouble. Maybe there is a loyalty to them that his friends don't have. And it's sort of while he's trying to keep them from going at each other's throats, he's sort of at the same time feeling bad. There's a little bit of guilt for it. And I think this is kind of partly why I don't want to start this one soon. Let's see. Because I think there's a lot of possibilities that could go into it. There's a lot of possible angles that it could. Oh, whoops. Okay. Paste it as new layer. Sort of there's a lot of possibilities with the storyline, and I think I want to. I think I want a firm grasp of where that one is going, rather than let's just see what happens when I start, like I do with a lot of stories. Let's just see where it takes me. I also am thinking. Let me grab on his head. I think I'm also in the back of my head wondering if I could do something a little different stylistically with it. And I'm not really sure. Because, kind of, in a way, while I've sort of evolved with the work, I sort of feel like the style of these stories has almost become sort of, I don't want to say my trademark, but maybe my brand. So it's kind of like if you do something drastically different, you're wondering if that, like, if it goes against the brand. if you sort of, or if it's sort of like you put the effort into it and it bombs just because of the style, that sort of thing. No, let's grab this one. I'm going to do another one. Actually, you know what? I'm going to copy this one, paste it. I think in like a different way, it's been something I've always been conscious of throughout my work. Let me see what I want to say. You're wrong now. Everything will work out. You'll see. See, so here, if I decide not to put the flashback scene immediately after this one, I can always have a different discourse with these two panels. Let me think. Let's see. I'm roughly sure of that. I thought it was. Oops. You know something, Liz. I thought it was just your positive attitude, but now you know something, Liz. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. A, it keeps it from getting too wordy. I think. Oh, shoot. I'm gonna have to do this manually. Okay, that's it. You know what? I'm gonna split this whole thing. Okay. And let's see. I'm gonna trim this slightly. I think that looks good. Oops. Where is it? This one. But I think in addition to that idea, oh yeah, I was talking about branding and blah blah blah, but yeah, I guess I'll stick in that. Stick to that thought first, but I've been conscious of it throughout that, or I don't know. I think I've suspected it from the first year I've been working on these stories, and I think it's kind of been confirmed a little more recently that oops, I think it's the stories where the size change is focused on the kids. Doesn't really don't really do as well as the ones focused on David, or aren't maybe they aren't received as well. And it's almost and it's like it's hard to say because I think like when you look at the numbers overall, they tell a slightly different story. It's sort of like I think way back when I put Little Bro out, it was my first story outside of the series. It was sort of the first in the muscle growth side of things, and it always felt like it never performed like the Shrimp of the House stories do. And yet it kind of chugs along more than other stories. I think it's like I think if you look at it as far as like trying to make sales off it, your strongest sales period is going to be during that opening month or so. And Little Bro is one that just keeps, it just like it just keeps. I mean, it's not a huge seller, but it feels like it does better in longevity. And again, I could just be assuming that. But it does, but I like it does pick up more of the more incidental sales than say Friends Forever. You know what? I think I'm trying to think how to get the expression I want with her. Lips. Let's see. I think. Hmm. Yes. Maybe not quite as much. So it's and yet, I have that feeling in the back of my mind, and yet I keep doing stories, putting the kids at the center of it instead. Like Showtime, where it's Allison is messing with Jackson and with Jackson and Aiden. That's what I want to do, right? And what I'm going to do is end this one. I think it's like my need to keep things different, keep things varied. Mm, you know, not to get so formulaic that when you pick up the next story, you're basically just going to read the one before it. The same story you read every, you know. So I don't know. And I talk about, kind of going back to where it all started, the idea to do it a little, to do the sort of sports story there that I'm talking about, whatever. I'm just going to call it Untitled number 30. Is that what I labeled it as? I already gave it a folder. I think I called it Untitled number 30. Oh my gosh. That's where I am already. But yeah, I can tell it's not going to work down there. But I mean, like, the story itself will work either way. It's sort of what, the choice I'm looking at in the back of my head is, do I sort of do it in the same Three Delight style that I use with all the muscle growth stories and the shrinking stories outside of the Shrimp of the House universe? Or do I go with something visually different? And let me see. Oh, yeah, I did give it Untitled number 30. Okay, I did not put pictures in here. My X folder. So here we go. So I'm thinking maybe something visually like this, that looks a little more cartoony, a little less realistic. Even if I don't go the black and white, I'm thinking this could be. I'm really thinking about doing a style like this, but I really think I really think the appeal with these stories is that they look somewhat realistic. Although I'm really tempted to do something more of a cartoon, so to speak, something more artsy. And I guess before I wrap up here, the other story idea that's kind of coming into focus is actually Shrimp of the House issue 12, the next story after this one. Because it's what I've been wanting to do is a vacation story. I think what I wanted to do after this story was a vacation story. And it's like I can't really come up with something to go with it to fit in that premise. I've had an idea of what I want to do with that story, but I'm not really sure. It was like one of those. I'm not really sure if it would work, but I got playing around with some. What did we do? I was playing around for maybe an hour yesterday with sort of some of the stuff that's been piling up in my model library here. And I threw together a quick scene just playing around. And I think I'm going to flip this. And I think I can do what I was thinking of without it looking crappy. I think that was my biggest concern was, I wanted to do something, maybe like something in the woods, but, I'm just thinking it's going to look crappy to where it's not worth doing. But I think I've got sort of just the right props in my library right now to put together a forest scene. So I might do, I might look at doing Shrimp at the House 12 next. Flatten image and export. Where the family goes on a camping trip during the summer and mayhem ensues in the forest. That would certainly be different. Wait, what if I'm stuck at this size forever? That won't happen. When you wake up Saturday morning, you'll be your old 6 foot self again. You don't know that. What if that's what the recall is all about? What if it's not shrinking away to nothing, but shrinking and staying shrunk? You were wrong before and you're wrong now, David. Everything will work out. You'll see. You're awfully sure of that. I thought it was just your positive attitude before, but now you know something, Liz. What is it? Hmm. So that will that as it's written will lead into the flashback sort of reveal that I've been wanting to do from the beginning. If not, I can always rework this. It's where maybe he tell it's I can rework it so that their conversation ends differently, but so far that is what this page looks like. I feel like this went on long, but I guess unlike a lot of videos, I actually had something to say there. So I will see you next time, and I hope you enjoyed that.